All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to do a season overview on the Detroit Lions and what they have to do this offseason. And so far, they have made moves. They signed cornerback DJ Reed from the Jets. They did lose Carlton Davis to the Patriots, so they bring in DJ Reed. And they re-signed some guys. They re-signed Marcus Davenport on the defensive line. They also re-signed Derek Barnes as well. Um, but I think the biggest thing from this offseason is they lost Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. And, how is the coaching staff going to turn out next year? Are the Lions going to regress? Because they had a very good season. And this was a team that I picked to go to the Super Bowl before the year started. I think I had them at 13 wins, I want to say. So I had them winning the NFC North, but they ended up winning 15 games. The only two games that they ended up losing in the regular season was to Tampa, and then they lost 48-42 to the Bills. So those were two. Well, the Bills, they were playing from behind the entire game, but the Bucs was a game they definitely could have won late, but they ended up losing that. But what really hurt the Lions was injuries. They dealt with a ton of injuries, particularly on defense. You had Aiden Hutchinson going down early on in the year, that horrific leg injury against the Cowboys. You had Anzalone going down. You had Derek Barnes ended up getting hurt. There was just a ton of guys on defense. And once we got to the playoffs and they went up against the Commanders, it was just too much for them to overcome. And then also people speculated that Jared Goff was playing with a concussion for most of the game after he took that hit from, I think it was from Frankie Louvu on the interception, the pick six. And Goff did not have a good playoff game when it came to the turnovers. He did throw for over 300 yards, but yeah, three interceptions, and then he also fumbled the ball too. Not good. But all year you thought this was the best team in the NFC, with the Eagles right behind them. And I really wanted to see what would have happened had the Eagles and the Lions matched up against each other in the playoffs. If both teams are healthy, I would have loved to have seen that, but we never got it. Jared Goff did put together a very good season. 4,600 yards, 37 touchdowns to 12 picks. The running game between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery combined, they had 28 rushing touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs had 16. David Montgomery had 12. He did get hurt, but he came back for the playoff game against the Commanders. Jahmyr Gibbs had 1,400 yards rushing. David Montgomery had 775. And then with the receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown continues to be one of the best receivers in the NFL. 1,263 receiving yards. He had 12 receiving touchdowns on the year. Jamison Williams had over 1,000 yards. Well, barely over 1,000. He had 1,001 receiving yards. Had 7 receiving touchdowns. He did take that next step and became that second receiver behind St. Brown, which is something we talked about going into the year last year, that, he was a guy that needed to step up. Sam Laporta only had 726 receiving yards. What did he have his rookie year? He had his rookie season, he ended up having 889 receiving yards and 10 touchdowns. So the numbers were down a little bit. Had 7 touchdowns as opposed to 10 from his rookie season, and had 726 receiving yards, like I said. Jahmyr Gibbs also had 4 receiving touchdowns. Tim Patrick also, is kind of like that third option amongst the pass catchers. He made some plays for them in 2024. He had 3 receiving touchdowns. But yeah, the defense, took a major hit due to injury. But, it didn't matter in the regular season. Lions just kept winning games, and that final game against the Vikings, it was going to be tough. But they ended up winning that game 31-9. It was close for a while, but the Lions ended up pulling away because the Vikings just could not score. But some of their wins, they beat up on some teams. They beat up on the Cowboys when Aiden Hutchinson got hurt. They beat up on the Cowboys because you remember, in 2023 there was that whole thing with them going for two, and they said that the tackle didn't report eligible, so the 2-point conversion ended up not counting, and then they went for it again and didn't get it. But the Lions made sure they circled that on the calendar, and they really beat up on the Cowboys. A lot of teams beat up on the Cowboys in 2024 early on. But you also had in week 1, we had a rematch of the wild card game from the previous year against the Rams, and this was another good game. Lions won in overtime 26-20. David Montgomery scored the game-winning touchdown. Like I said, they lost to Tampa. But then they really got on a roll and didn't lose until they played Buffalo in December. But, you had that epic game against the Vikings, Jake Bates kicking the game-winning field goal. The Vikings were up 10-0, and then the Lions, they went on to score, what was it? Was it 21 unanswered, or they ended up scoring? They scored 21 unanswered points. Vikings ended up taking the lead late because Montgomery fumbled, and they returned it for a touchdown, the Vikings did. But, yeah, the Lions ended up winning that, and they never gave the division back. Also, another signature win for them was that game against the Texans on that Sunday night. Jared Goff had 5 interceptions in that game, and they were down 23-7 going into the half. And despite all that, they came back, won that game. Jake Bates kicked 2 50-yard field goals, a 58-yarder and a 52-yarder, and they were very close to not being good. But they ended up winning that, and that was a big win for them on that Sunday night. But yeah, they beat up on Jacksonville. They won 52-6. They won 52-14 against the Titans. A couple of nail biters. On Thanksgiving, you had that game against the Bears with the mismanagement of the clock, and then against the Packers, they won on a last-second Jake Bates field goal. That was when they went for it, and on 4th down, and it looked like they weren't going to get it, but Montgomery picked it up. But yeah, they won 34-31 over the Packers. Yeah, got into a shootout with the Bills. Well, they were playing catch up, and this is when I remember saying this on the football podcast. But Jared Goff and the Lions, they won a game where he threw 5 interceptions. They lost a game where he didn't turn the ball over once. He had almost 500 yards passing and 5 touchdowns. And they lost 48-42. And that's because Josh Allen had, I think he had, how many touchdowns did Josh Allen have in this game? He had 4 total touchdowns. He had 2 passing and 2 rushing. And the Bills ran the ball for almost 200 yards in the game. So, yeah. But they won the NFC Championship game rematch with the 49ers. They won 40-34. That was on that Monday night. And then, yeah, won the division. But, yeah, you got to the playoffs. The injuries really caught up with them. The Commanders, gave the Lions a taste of their own medicine by going for it on 4th down. Jaden Daniels played really well in that game. Jared Goff, like I said, was playing with a concussion, many people assume, after the Frankie Louvu hit. And it was just a disappointing end to their season. And this was a year that you thought maybe they were going to go all the way. And I don't know, I think if they would have went up against the Eagles, I think they probably would have lost. But we'll see what happens if they open up against the Eagles first game of the year, because they do play in Philly. And I think, if the NFL wants to get the year started with the bang, maybe you have the Lions go up against it. But yeah, the Lions will be picking at 28 in the first round. So yeah, they got a first rounder, second rounder, third rounder, fourth rounder, 6th round pick, and I think they have 2 7s. So, and then in terms of like what they need, I mean, I think they could go defensive heavy, maybe. I mean, right now they signed DJ Reed. That was their big signing. But, running back, they're fine. I mean, quarterback, they're fine, obviously. Tight end. Receiver maybe is something they could do in the later rounds. But I think for the Lions, this will be a defensive-heavy draft. I could be wrong on that, but that's just kind of how I feel. Maybe they're a team that goes after Trey Hendrickson, because I think they were also looking at Myles Garrett and trying to maybe pair him up with Aiden Hutchinson. And looking at the Lions' cap situation, go to overthecap.com. So the Lions right now with their salary cap, and I don't know, is this with this might be before the DJ Reed signing, but they have $52 million in cap space. So, they could definitely make some more moves. I mean, like I said, I think defense is going to be what they do. But my biggest thing going into the season is how is the coaching staff going to be without Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson? Is this offense going to take a step back? We'll see. But they still got all the guys there on offense. Really didn't lose any key guys. I mean, like I said, they lost Carlton Davis, but they replaced him with DJ Reed. So, in terms of the personnel on the field, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I right now I still look at them as the best team in the North, and they could definitely be overthrown. But I still look at them as the best team. So that is pretty much it. We will have to keep an eye on what happens the rest of the day here. Still a lot of moves that will be made. Still some quarterbacks out there. Aaron Rodgers could be signed by the Steelers. I think that's the most likely thing. And then Russell Wilson, I think, is going to end up going to the Giants because the Giants want to bring in a veteran. So it's funny how quick things change. We hear that, Art Stapleton, who's a Giants beat writer, he goes on the Pat McAfee show and says that the Giants and Aaron Rodgers are in deep negotiations. And now all of a sudden, oh yeah, he might be going to the Steelers. So it just goes to show you that we don't know anything. But there's rumors out there that the Giants and the Steelers both have offers on the table. But yeah, I think Rodgers probably is going to end up going to the Steelers because that's a better chance for him to win as opposed to going to the Giants. So we will see what happens. And if we get news as soon as today, we'll talk about it. But there's more stuff we'll get into tomorrow because, I wanted to also talk about the Buccaneers, a couple of their signings. They brought back Chris Godwin, so I wanted to get into that. There's going to be more things that happen throughout the day, and we'll cover it tomorrow. There's also some baseball stuff I wanted to get into with the season a couple weeks away. So we will get into all that at some point. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Make sure to subscribe to both YouTube channels. I appreciated the follow that we got today during the show, even though the username I really couldn't pronounce the whole name. But appreciated the follow. Make sure to like and leave a comment on the videos. And until next time, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.